Food is never just food. A meal can comfort us. A smell can take us back in time. A craving can appear after a stressful day. A snack can become a reward. A familiar dish can make us feel close to home, even when we are far from it. This is why food and emotion are so deeply connected. We do not only eat with the body, we also eat with memory, mood, stress, loneliness, joy, and longing. In the first episode of this series, we explored why we eat more than hunger. We looked at the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger, and how food can become a response to stress, habit, boredom, and comfort. In this episode, we go deeper. We look at the hidden link between food and emotion. Because many eating habits are not really about food alone. They are about what food helps us feel, avoid, remember, or temporarily escape. One of the strongest emotional connections to food is comfort. Comfort food is not random. It often carries memory. It may remind us of childhood, family, home, celebration, care. A warm meal can feel like safety. A familiar taste can make the nervous system relax. A certain dish can bring back a time when life felt simpler, warmer, or more connected. This is why people often crave familiar foods during stress. The body may be asking for energy, but the mind may be asking for reassurance. The food becomes a kind of emotional bridge, a way to return, even briefly, to a feeling of comfort. This is not something to shame. It is deeply human. Across cultures, food has always been connected to care. We bring food to people who are grieving. We cook for people we love. We gather around meals during celebrations. We associate certain foods with holidays, family traditions, and belonging. Food is one of the ways human beings express connection. So when someone turns to food for comfort, it does not always mean something is wrong. The problem begins when comfort food becomes the only comfort available. If food is the only way someone soothes stress, loneliness, sadness, or exhaustion, then food begins to carry emotional work. It was never meant to carry alone. It can help for a moment, but it cannot replace rest. It cannot replace connection. It cannot replace emotional honesty. It cannot replace a life that feels balanced and meaningful. Another powerful emotion linked to food is stress. Stress changes the way people eat. Some people lose their appetite. Others eat more. Some crave sugar. Some crave salty snacks. Some eat quickly and barely notice the food. Some eat late at night after holding themselves together all day. When the body is stressed, it looks for relief, and food can become one of the fastest ways to create that relief. It offers taste, texture, pleasure, distraction, a brief sense of reward. This is especially true after a difficult day. A person may say, "I deserve this," and sometimes they do. Food can be part of enjoyment. But if every stressful day ends in the same automatic eating pattern, the brain begins to learn. Stress means food. Food means relief. Relief means repeat. This is how emotional eating becomes a loop. The stress triggers the craving. The food brings temporary comfort. Then guilt or heaviness may follow. Then more stress appears. And the cycle continues. Breaking that cycle does not begin with self-hatred. It begins with awareness. Instead of saying, "I failed again," we can ask, "What was I feeling before I reached for food? Was I tired? Was I anxious? Was I lonely? Was I overwhelmed? Was I looking for comfort, reward, or escape?" That question gives us information, and information gives us choice. Another emotion closely tied to food is loneliness. This is one of the quieter connections. When people feel lonely, food can become a companion. A meal, a snack, or a drink can fill a moment that otherwise feels empty. It gives structure to time. It creates a small comfort. It gives the hands something to do. It gives the senses something to focus on. For some people, eating alone is peaceful. For others, it highlights loneliness. And in those moments, food may become a way to soften the silence. Again, this is human. But loneliness cannot be fully solved by food. It may be softened, but not healed. The deeper need may be connection, conversation, community, friendship, meaningful routine, a sense of belonging. When loneliness is mistaken for hunger, a person may keep eating and still feel empty, not because the food was wrong, but because the need was different. This is why emotional awareness matters. It helps us identify the real hunger underneath the craving. Another emotional link is reward. Many people use food to reward themselves. After work, after stress, after completing a task, after surviving a hard week. This can be perfectly normal. Food is part of celebration and enjoyment, but reward eating can become unbalanced when food becomes the main way we recognize effort, comfort ourselves, or create pleasure. A person may not know how to rest without food. They may not know how to celebrate without overeating. They may not know how to feel good without reaching for a familiar treat. The goal is not to remove pleasure from eating. That would make food feel like punishment. The goal is to expand the ways we experience reward. A walk, music, rest, a phone call, a creative hobby, a quiet moment, a meaningful routine. When life has more sources of reward, food does not have to carry the whole burden. This is the natural midpoint of the episode. The hidden link between food and emotion is not the enemy. It is information. Our cravings, habits, and food choices often tell us something about our inner life. They may reveal stress we have ignored, fatigue we have pushed through, loneliness we have minimized, sadness we have not expressed, pressure we have carried too long. This is why food can become a mirror. Not a mirror for judgment, a mirror for awareness. The question is not, how do I control myself harder? The better question is, what is my eating pattern trying to tell me? If a craving appears every night, what happens every night emotionally? If stress leads to snacking, what kind of stress am I carrying? If loneliness leads to overeating, where do I need more connection? If guilt follows meals, what beliefs about food and self-worth have I learned? These questions help us move from shame to understanding. And understanding is where real change begins. Another important emotion linked to food is guilt. Many people do not simply eat food, they judge themselves while eating it. They think, I should not have this. I have no discipline. I ruined everything. I will start again tomorrow. This kind of guilt can create a painful relationship with food. Instead of eating with awareness, the person eats with inner conflict. Instead of enjoying food, they feel anxious. Instead of learning from their pattern, they attack themselves. But guilt is not the same as wisdom. Guilt often keeps people trapped in the same cycle. They restrict, then crave, then overeat, then feel ashamed, then promise to be stricter, then repeat. A healthier relationship with food requires less punishment and more honesty. It asks, what happened? What did I need? What can I learn? What would support me better next time? This is not about making excuses. It is about creating change without cruelty, because people do not usually build healthy patterns by hating themselves into discipline. They build healthier patterns by understanding themselves into awareness. So how can we begin to work with the emotional side of eating? First, pause before eating when possible. Not every time, not perfectly, but often enough to notice. Ask, am I physically hungry, or am I emotionally activated? Second, name the feeling. Stress, boredom, loneliness, sadness, tiredness, reward, comfort. Naming the feeling reduces its power. It turns an automatic impulse into something we can understand. Third, choose consciously. Sometimes you may still choose the food, but now it is a choice, not an unconscious reaction. And sometimes you may realize the real need is something else. Rest, water, movement, connection, a break, a conversation, a quiet moment. Fourth, remove shame from the process. Shame makes food heavier than it needs to be. Awareness makes food clearer. The goal is not to become perfect. The goal is to become present. Because the more present we become, the more we can distinguish between feeding the body and soothing the emotion. Both matter, but they are not always the same. So as we close this episode, remember this. Food and emotion have always been connected. Food can comfort. Food can celebrate. Food can remind. Food can soothe. Food can bring people together. But when food becomes our only emotional tool, We may keep eating without addressing what our inner life is asking for. A healthier relationship with food begins when we stop seeing every craving as failure and begin seeing it as a message. A message from the body, a message from the mind, a message from a life that may need more rest, connection, balance, or care. In the next episode, we will explore why cravings feel so powerful, and why cravings are not simply about weakness, but about habit, reward, stress, environment, and the brain's search for relief. If this video gave you something to reflect on, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And before you leave, ask yourself this: what emotion most often shapes the way I eat?